What's up, y'all? It's me, it's your boy Asmongold, and today, well, we're doing it. We're doing the Arms Warrior PvE DPS guide, and I know a lot of you guys have asked me about that, and I've told you, but I make these videos for you guys, and this is what you guys wanted, and so I'm going to get this done, and hopefully this will help a lot of you guys who have had any confusions. Now, talents is going to be the first thing we're going to look at here. I use double time, and the reason I use double time is because I prefer bursts of movement rather than consistent movement. I also use second wind because I'm lazy. You probably should use either Impending Victory or Enraged Regen. Impending Victory costs 10 rage and Whirlwind costs 20, so it might be a slight DPS gain in single target, but that's kind of up to you. I also use Taste for Blood, and the reason for that is that I just prefer it for AoE, and Sudden Death is the best for single target, and Slam is the best if you're a dumbass, and so you don't want to ever use Slam. Dragon's Roar is the best for AoE situations, and Stormbolt is supposedly the best for single target situations, but I prefer Dragon's Roar because it's very easy to use. Shockwave is obviously for PvP. Vigilance, this is just your raid utility tier, and so Vigilance is probably the best raid utility thing. You can also use Mass Spell Reflect if it's needed, doing like Auckland Heroic. Avatar, if you pick Avatar, you're dumb, okay? You just don't ever want to pick Avatar. It's a terrible talent, and only morons pick it. Bloodbath is usually what you want to use for single target. Even though Bladestorm does a lot of single target damage, maybe if you're doing like a straight single target fight like Butcher, you might want to use Bloodbath. Bladestorm, if you're going to have more than one target pretty much up at any time in a fight, I pretty much just stick with Bladestorm. Ravager is what you want to use. Okay, it's real simple. Anger Management's also okay, and so is Siegebreaker, but they're pretty much the same. Ravager is pretty much what you want to go with. I think that Ravager is affected by Colossus Smash, and so you want to put down your Ravager and then Colossus Smash. I'm not entirely sure on that, but that's just usually the way I do things. And so anyway, the other two talents, as I said before, are marginal, and there's really no reason to ever not use Ravager unless you're PvPing, and so this is more PvE anyway. And so the three main glyphs that I'm using here are Glyph of Endless Rage, Glyph of Sweeping Strikes. Glyph of Endless Rage and Sweeping Strikes, in my opinion, are the two most important glyphs, and the reason for that is that Endless Rage obviously allows you to pull more rage for Colossus Smash and also for just like bursts of AoE damage or whatever, and especially for Execute Phase. Execute Phase is extremely important, and a Glyph of Sweeping Strikes gives you rage back whenever you hit something with Sweeping Strikes, and so that's very important. And the Glyph of like the Raging Wind or something like that, that's the other one that I have. Pretty much what that does is that just increases the range of my Whirlwind, and so that just helps with AoE. Enraged Speed is nice if you're like doing a lot of movement, so you don't move out of melee range. Executor, I haven't really found a good use for that, not even in challenge mode, so I just don't really think that it pays off very well, but I might consider using it. Obviously, Gag Order is useful in certain situations, but not always. Let's see, what else are we looking at here? Recklessness, that might be useful with the tier bonus. I don't know if they changed that from beta, though. Root Interruption, obviously, is useful whenever you're doing interrupts, but that's, again, not, it's very, very situational. The Drawn Sword is, like, kind of useful if you're pulling, like, a huge AoE pack solo. The rest of this stuff is not really that important. Rallying Cry for soloing, maybe. And so anyway, here, I'm just going to kind of go in, and the first thing I do here is I charge in, and you pretty much want to, I'm going to explain how you do this in Heroism Phase a little bit differently, but whenever you're doing a normal fight, I didn't even know that this training dummy attacked me, and so like I didn't know what the fuck was going on. I got stuck there, and so this is kind of like a weird run, or a weird like pull here, but generally what you want to do is you want to go in and you want to use Colossus Smash as your pretty much first opener. Or maybe even better, you probably want to use Rend as your first opener, and you want to apply Rend to all targets, especially if you're using Taste for Blood. And the reason for that is Rend will obviously give you Rage back, and Rend is your highest damage ability if the entire duration goes. And then also, if you guys didn't know, you can refresh Rend within 5 seconds of it expiring, and if you do that, it will still grant the large like Mortal Strike type attack at the end of it. Was whenever Rend expires, it does like a bunch of damage, like as a big burst. And so if you refresh it within 5 seconds of that, that's okay. Now I did another pull here just since I had that one like little fuck up there. But anyway, so the main thing that you really want to do whenever you charge in is you want to charge in, apply Rend, and then put down your Ravager. Go ahead and pop your cooldowns. And usually, if the fight's going to last longer or shorter than 3 minutes, you probably want to save execute or sorry. recklessness until execute phase. You also always want to have what's it called? Sweeping strikes up for pretty much the entire time if you're ever doing a 2-target fight, because that's what arms really excels at. If you're playing single target, you really want to be playing gladiator spec, honestly, and the only time you really would be playing arms in a as single target is like if you're doing like just a dungeon and you just end up fighting a boss as arms. But for all intents and purposes, gladiator spec is vastly superior to arms in single target right now, just because of how AoE centric arms is, and especially with sweeping strikes and everything. Now during Colossus Smash, what you really want to have happen is that you want to either Colossus Smash, you want to make sure you get at least one Mortal Strike within the Colossus Smash. It doesn't matter if it's at the end or at the beginning. And in order to get 2 Mortal Strikes within the Colossus Smash, you basically have to have Heroism up, and I'll cover that in a little bit. But as you can see, I always have the, whenever I Ravager, I always have the Colossus Smash up, and so it can do maximum damage to with Ravager. And as I said before, I'm not entirely sure if Colossus Smash makes Ravager do more damage, but I don't really think it's a bad idea to just wait to be certain. I'm not entirely sure though. And so either way, again, it's just pretty much about like whirlwinding, using like whirlwind as your filler. And I know it's really stupid that you have to use whirlwind as your filler. I don't know why they haven't changed this, and I really just hope they give us back overpower, and everything would just be perfect, or give us slam as a baseline ability and make it better. But either way, until then. And if you're using sudden death, it's very important to always be using sudden death as soon as it procs. And the reason for that is so you can proc it again, because sudden death has a 10% chance to proc off of melee attacks. And so obviously the faster you cast it, the faster the next melee attack still has a 20% or 10% chance of proccing it. And so if you don't use it and then it procs it again, you've basically wasted it. And obviously, it's very good to have it whenever you have Colossus Smash up, but I would not save it or do anything weird like that. I would just pretty much treat it like a whirlwind or just like anything else. It's important that you pool enough rage to be able to at least utilize every single GCD inside of a Colossus Smash, and so make sure you have at least over like 50 rage, just to make sure that, as I said before, every single GCD within the Colossus Smash is dealing damage, and you're not auto attacking or anything like that, to make sure that you get the maximum amount of damage out of it. Now, the most important thing about arms is kind of how you play it in dungeons. And so what I did is I just queued up for a random dungeon, and I'm going to show you guys a couple of different pulls and different things that I find that are important. And I didn't talk about this. Stat priority, guys, is crit, and people say multi-strike is better than mastery. I think mastery is pretty good. I usually stack mastery, but multi-strike is definitely superior to mastery whenever you're doing AoE, because obviously mastery increases your core abilities, and so you're not really using your core abilities whenever you're doing AoE. Now below that, I'm pretty sure that the rest of the stuff is not really all that important. You pretty much just want to focus on gear that has. I'll put all of the stat priorities in the video here, but you pretty much want to focus on gear that has crit and multi-strike or crit and mastery. And those are pretty much going to be your 3 strongest stats, with multi-strike being better than mastery, especially during whenever you're doing an AoE fight. Now, as you can see, whenever there's a, an AoE pull, the main thing you want to do is put down Ravager and then Bladestorm. Make sure that you always have sweeping strikes up, and it will be up for the entire duration of the Bladestorm, so you're doing as maximum damage as possible. Whenever you're doing a fight like this, you want to be always prioritizing killing things with Execute. Execute should be like one of your highest damage abilities, and it should definitely be your highest damage ability whenever you're doing a dungeon, because as soon as anything goes into Execute range, you should be focusing it, and kind of like just cleaving down each individual thing as they go into Execute range. And so, like for example, whenever you're fighting like 3 targets or something like that, you can sweeping strikes and cleave Execute onto another target. And so that's what makes Execute really good, especially in dungeons. And so make sure that you're always, if there's a target under 20%, you need to be executing it. Now here's a single target rotation that I'm kind of doing. Like this is just, as I said before, this is just like an impromptu like dungeon here. Now in terms of Dragon's Roar, what you really want to do is just make sure that you don't use Dragon's Roar during during Colossus Smash, and preferably that you use it during like any sort of strength proc or anything like that, because Dragon's Roar does not proc off of, or it doesn't scale off of weapon damage, it scales off of attack power. And so that's why you want to have as much, as you can see there, by the way, there's a huge crit, fucking 100,000k crit, or 100k crit. Look at that, like Execute my top damage, and I only did it a few times. And so whenever you're doing a dungeon, you should pretty much expect that to happen. But anyway, yeah, Dragon's Roar pretty much scales off of attack power, and so whenever you have a strength proc or something like that, and I want to show you guys this, whenever you have a heroism up, you want a Colossus Smash and then Mortal Strike, and make sure that you do not clip the next Mortal Strike, because you can get 2 Mortal Strikes in one Colossus Smash. And I have like almost 40% haste, so you want to make sure that you have enough haste to make your Mortal Strike at least a 4.5 second cooldown, because obviously Colossus Smash is 6 seconds, and that would allow you to use it twice within the duration. But again, ARMS is mostly about pretty much focusing all of your damage and making sure that you use all of your cooldowns, and you maximize your execute phase, and that's probably where you're going to do most of your damage. If you guys remember in the first tier of Mists of Pandaria, this was kind of the case where most people just like waited until execute to pop all their cooldowns, and while that is true, obviously you shouldn't really like not use your cooldowns at all, but just make sure that they will be up and they will be used entirely during the execute phase. And so whenever you actually reach execute phase, what you want to do is pop Recklessness, and then make sure that you pop like Ravager or something like that if you have it up, and then you use Colossus Smash, and then usually I have like a bad habit of clicking what do you call it, Recklessness before or clicking Colossus Smash before I click Rec. But as you can see, like execute was by far my top damage there, and so I did almost a 300,000 execute crit there. And so ARMS is very useful in certain situations, but in other situations it's not really as good. But what it really comes down to, as I said before, is whenever you have a 2 or 3 target fight, ARMS is going to be definitely one of the better specs. And an example of this in the High Mall is Twin Ogron. And so on fights like Twin Ogron, maybe Brackenspore, Tectus, maybe Imperator, I'm not really that, I don't think so. It depends on like how the ads play out in at the end and like Mythic and stuff like that. But what you pretty much want to focus on is whenever there's an ad fight, ARMS is going to be one of the better specs. But again, it's all about making sure that you always have your different buffs up and you're able to capitalize on your execute phase, and also making sure that you're capitalizing on your Bladestorm and Ravager phases too. And so anyway, guys, I hope this helped. If I missed anything else, I'll probably add it somewhere in the video. But really what it comes down to is you just have to sit there and wait for, you know, like your different abilities to come up. ARMS is not in a very engaging point right now, and so there's a lot of waiting around just to have an ability hit. And so anyway, that's pretty much all I got. Hopefully this helped you guys, and I know a lot of people have been wanting this, and so if you guys have any other questions in terms of like ARMS or whatever else, just go ahead and let me know, and I'll try and answer it to the best of my ability. But either way, that's pretty much all I've got. Thanks for watching, and like, comment, subscribe.